Hey, it's Brian. Welcome back. We've got one unbelievable story here I'm going to present to you. So get ready, fasten your seatbelt. It's a good one. This is going to be a bit long, but this is acting as a way for me to vent and ask for advice in fixing my marriage. It's been going on 7 months since my husband discovered my affair. The both of us are 39, and my husband, before he found out, was sweet. He's not a perfect man. He has his quirks, but I was his world. Our family was his world. He worked long hours to make sure I stayed home and raised our son and daughter. He would always do things, sweet things, just to brighten my day, and it really did. Now, my husband was the opposite. In high school, he was rude, charming, and obnoxious. Used to get into a lot of fights and had a lot of girlfriends, and yet, for some reason, the summer before senior year, he wanted to talk to me. I was the nerdy girl into video games, comic books, and cosplay. He was always nice to me ever since he moved into our town in 8th grade. He was different. His family was different, and everyone wanted to hang out with him. I was invited to my first party because of him. He taught me how to dance salsa, and then he fell in with a popular crowd, and I thought that was it. But that summer, he walked into the comic shop I was working in and just hung out all day, talking to me and even walked me home. One day became many, and we were dating by summer's end. I had the greatest senior year of my life. I was part of the popular crowd, and I went to so many parties, but my favorite moment was when it was just the two of us. Of course, I never slacked off. I studied hard, and I made him study with me. We both got into the same college, and we were married shortly after graduation. Our son came a year and a half later, and our daughter 20 months after that. My husband worked hard for us during all this. He had trouble finding a job because he had no experience, so he worked odd jobs in construction, grave digging, janitorial, and even as a receptionist until he found a company that would give him a chance as a computer tech. My husband put on a lot of weight during that time, but it never decreased his sexual appetite. As for me, I kept my figure and maintained it, and soon we looked like a cartoon couple. A fat yet muscular man with a slender fit wife. We even dressed as Barney and Fred Rubble one Halloween that emphasized that cliche. It's not like he didn't work out, he just had a hard time losing the body fat, but his sexual appetite was always high. For me, it was decreasing. It's not like I didn't want to have sex. It's just that I wasn't in the mood. And as the years passed, I wasn't in the mood for sexual favors as well. I was always tired. The kids really drained me. Cooking and cleaning really drained me. Yes, he did help with the laundry, cooking, and cleaning. Made sure Saturday was takeout day and Sunday was daddy cook day, but I was still tired and not in the mood. I used to love it when he took it from me, but I still gave him more no's than yes. It would affect his mood the longer we didn't have it. He'll snap and complain, and when we didn't have it, he would turn it into a marathon. I would be sore for the next week, and he would still want more. He would ask me to cosplay for him, and I didn't want to. However, he had no issues wearing the costumes I made for him for comic and video game conventions, knowing that he really hated it. Our lack of sex was a big issue for him. We even went to couples counseling, and our counselor said my husband was a borderline sex addict, but only wanted to have sex with me. I then had myself checked out, and for my examination, it turned out that I had low estrogen and was even given several medications for it, but it still didn't work. Now, my doctor soon told me that I was suffering from female impotence, something that I thought was made up. The affair wasn't planned. I wasn't romantic or something grandiose. It was something that just happened. I was out with my friends. We're all married. We all go to the same church, and we're just bowling and having fun. It was the first time since the lockdowns we got together and just had a blast. At the end of the game, all the ladies left, and instead of going home, I went to the lounge so I could wait out the buzz, and that was where I met my affair partner. He was young, in his early 20s, and he noticed I was reading a manga on my phone, and we began talking. I wished I could blame it on the alcohol, but I was only buzzed. I wish I could blame it on being lonely, but my husband always wanted me and gave me plenty of attention. I wish I could say I had an unhappy marriage, but we were very happy. In all honesty, I still don't know why I did it. I mean, I know how it happened. We talked for a few hours. He flirted and I flirted back. He walked me to my car and he kissed me. Instead of pushing him away, I kissed him back and we had sex in the motel next door. But I don't know why I did it. I didn't last that long. At first, he tried to have me go down on him and I refused. We just went at it. It was very unsatisfying. About halfway through, I realized what the hell I was doing and I shoved him off off me, apologized, got dressed, and I left. Then when I came home, my husband was asleep with the kids on the sofa, and I went into the shower and cried about what I did. I told myself it was a mistake and it would never happen again. When I came out of the shower, I left my husband and kids sleep on the sofa, and I went to bed, curled up into a ball, and cried myself to sleep. Now, the next day I wanted to tell him the truth, but I was too scared. So I pretended it never happened. For 5 weeks, I pretended it never happened, and soon I realized I was late. I took a pregnancy test and it showed positive, and I couldn't understand how. My husband and I did have sex twice, but he had a vasectomy, and I made sure the night of the affair that man wore a condom. And even so, he never finished. Now, I went to the doctor and it turned out I was pregnant, which created a very awkward conversation when it came to the conclusion that the man must have removed the condom, and the doctor was telling me how it could have been the pre-cum that did it. Now, I was scared and scheduled an abortion. I couldn't keep this child. I couldn't do that to him. I was planning to keep this a secret. I got home and I cried and steadied myself for when the kids got home, but my husband came home early. I forced out a smile when he came home, but he was looking at me with rage. Our health equity emailed him with a new claim on the insurance. He asked who was the father, and I started crying. He repeated himself and asked how long was the affair. I was truthful. I told him it was a one-time thing and I pushed him off me, but he didn't believe me. So he repeated himself, but this time he yelled and it felt like it went right through my body. I told him it was the truth, and he grabbed me by the chin and slammed me against the wall. This was the first time he had ever done this to me. But his eyes were bloodshot and he was fighting back tears. He wanted to know the details, what we did, what he looked like, where we met, and then he called me a slut in Spanish before walking out of the house. Now, I cried and had my sister pick up my kids because I needed to be alone when he got home again. He didn't come home until after midnight. I met him by the door and gasped because he had a black eye. His shirt had blood stains and his fists were bruised. I asked if he was okay, but he shoved me and told me that the blood wasn't his before entering the bathroom and slamming the door closed. I sat by the stairs waiting for him to come out, and when he did, he sneered at me and went to the living room. Again, I tried to talk to him, but I wanted to know who he fought with. But he ignored me at first. Eventually, he looked at me and said, "Who do you think I had a fight with?" I turned white as he resumed watching TV. I went to the bowling alley the following day and asked around. Somehow, my husband found out who the guy was, and they fought. Fights in the alley are almost a daily thing in our town. It's to the point unless someone is shot, stabbed, or killed, the sheriff won't bother showing up. For the next week, he kicked me out of our room and had me sleep on the sofa. I tried twice to sneak back into bed. The first time he yelled at me to get out, and the second time he shoved me off the bed. I just looked at him when I got off the floor with no words, but I then went back to the sofa and cried. On the day of my appointment, he told me that I'd better get it done, and I nodded. I was scared to do it alone, and he looked at me with such hate when I asked him to come with me, and then told me to go freak myself. Now, when I got back from the procedure, there were pods outside the garage, and my husband and his friends were unloading the garage into them. I asked what was going on, and he told me that it was none of my effing business. His friends looked at him in shock, and I went inside. A few hours later, there was a lot of hammering, and I went to look at what was going on, and he was turning the garage into an apartment. I tried to apologize and talk to him, but he ignored me. Then one day, I apologized for everything, and that just angered him. He then told me that he was not going to waste any energy on me. He told me that if he had it his way, he would divorce me, but according to many lawyers he spoke to, after alimony and child support, he couldn't afford to live on his own. So he was stuck with me. The first month was awkward because it was hard to explain to the kids what was happening. I tried to invite him over to eat, but he ignored me. He would come home, check on the kids, ignore me, and go into the garage apartment. The second month, I begged him to go to counseling, and he went, but remained quiet, only to yell at me about cheating on him. I had no excuse. Then came the gut punch. I learned he had been screwing around with a lot of women. I thought he was lying just to hurt me, but the expression on his face said otherwise. The counselor asked him how many. He doesn't keep count, but said he'd been hooking up with random women almost every other day for the past 3 weeks. He needed to feel like a man and feel wanted. He's been using websites and apps, and when the counselor told him that 2 wrongs don't make a right, he fired back by telling her that it wasn't 2 wrongs. I was the one who cheated, broke our vows, lied, got pregnant, and tried to hide it. He's just trying to adapt to his new situation where we pretend to be happy couples when we're outside but are just roommates when we get home. It hurt me, but to me, I saw this as a way to still win him back. The following month, he began to talk to various women in front of me, and at this time, I had enough. And I told him that I wanted a divorce, and he laughed at me, told me to go right ahead, but he would make sure everyone knows what happened. He will scream it from the hills, post it on our family's Facebook page, and place it on our annual holiday newsletter to all our friends and family. That quickly shut me up, and he told me to leave, but I didn't want to. We argued and argued. It felt good to get some sort of emotion from him, and somehow we ended up having sex that lasted for hours. When we were done, I was happy. I thought we were healing, but he told me to get out, that my usefulness outstayed my welcome. I couldn't believe he said that to me, but I left. For the past few months now, it's been that way. Every once in a while, we would hook up, and he would kick me out as soon as he finished. He will still go out, and I know he's still hooking up with different women. However, we had been talking more, especially during counseling, but we're not healing. During one of our sessions, he told the counselor that something is broken in him. When he looks at me, he feels like he's wasted years of his life and now going through the motion. I asked him if there was any way we could start over, and he told me that as soon as the kids are old enough for him not to pay child support, he'll be divorcing me, and walked out. If he's so dead set on divorcing me, then why still go to counseling every week? I'm convinced he's just not saying these things to hurt me. The other day was our anniversary, and our family threw us a party. He played the part of a happy husband I hated for what I did to him. Missed the way our marriage used to be, the way he held my hand and kissed my cheek during the party, even the sappy speech he made. I wanted to believe it. When we got home, he put the kids to bed, and I tried to initiate sex. And we did, but as soon as it was over, he got up and left. I begged him to stay, but he just ignored me, and I cried myself to sleep. I need him. I want my husband back. I want our life back. Is there any wayward who has been through this or something similar who can give me advice on fixing my marriage? Someone, please help me.